Hello, good evening. You're welcome to another edition of Just Banter. And as usual, we have a very interesting guest on today. Before we get to the guest, though, let's first of all wish all the mothers out there happy Mother's Day. Women are the foundation of our society. They're the ones that run everything more or less. The men just try to do they're all of that. But without women, we will not have a thriving society, especially when it comes to African women. African women do a lot of hard work. Aside running their homes, they also take the extra, magic of working on the farms, in banks, running their own private businesses. Sometimes women even run three, four businesses to support their families, even though their husbands earn quite a bit. They're still very, very proactive in trying to make sure that their families get the best. So we would love to say happy Mother's Day to all those fantastic women out there who are doing all the good, good, good work that they're doing in helping to shape our societies. Several things have happened, over the past couple of weeks, but the most prominent of it has been the issue of the Harry, Meghan, Oprah Winfrey interview, and a lot of people have spoken quite a bit about that. Because of that, there's been quite a lot of distraction about what is truly happening to our lives. Now, when we look at the Hello, good evening. You're welcome to another edition of Just Banter. My name is Habib Nola, and as usual, we have a very interesting guest on today. Before we get to the guest, though, let's first of all wish all the mothers out there happy Mother's Day. Women are the foundation of our society. They're the ones that run everything more or less. The men just try to do they're all of that. But without women, we will not have a thriving society, especially when it comes to African women. African women do a lot of hard work. Aside running their homes, they also take the extra, magic of working on the farms, in banks, running their own private businesses. Sometimes women even run three, four businesses to support their families, even though their husbands earn quite a bit. They're still very, very proactive in trying to make sure that their families get the best. So we would love to say happy Mother's Day to all those fantastic women out there who are doing all the good, good, good work that they're doing in helping to shape our societies. Several things have happened, over the past couple of weeks, but the most prominent of it has been the issue of the Harry, Meghan, Oprah Winfrey interview, and a lot of people have spoken quite a bit about that. Because of that, there's been quite a lot of distraction about what is truly happening to everyday people in their everyday lives. Now, when we look at a country like Nigeria, Nigeria has been suffering quite a lot from insecurity, bad governance, and a host of other issues. Too numerous to mention here. But today, we're going to be having a discussion around the issue of instability. So many groups, so many interest groups, as a matter of fact, have come up with their own narrative on what the country Nigeria should be like. Some, as a matter of fact, are actually calling for the country to split up into several different parts. Regardless of the fact that there's a lot of beauty in diversity, there's a lot of strength in diversity if people could work together. Today, we're going to be discussing Nigeria on the brink of collapse with a very interesting man. His name is Abdulaziz Haladu. Abdulaziz Haladu is an economist and he's a farmer. As a matter of fact, he has had several brushes with cattle rustlers because he also heads cattle. Well, he runs a cattle farm as well. So I'm sure he has quite a lot to tell us when it comes to his experience, first of being a farmer, and then about Nigeria as an economist and also as somebody who is a political commentator. Hello, Abdulaziz.
Hello, Habib. How are you?
Well, thank God. Like Nigerians always say, God comes first in everything. How's the family? How's everyone around you?
We are good, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, that's fantastic. Nigeria is a very, very interesting country, and a lot has been happening in recent years. A lot of people have spoken about all the insecurity, all the banditry, all the kidnapping. Recently, there was another kidnapping somewhere in Nigeria where several students were abducted by bandits. A lot of people have had their own different perspectives on this issue. What is your opinion on what is going on in the country?
Uh, Nigeria is a very interesting country, like you said, and so many things have been happening in recent times. Some for good, some unfortunately for the worse. We are currently facing a period of insecurity which has marred and affected virtually every sphere of life, but particularly the one I call my source of livelihood, which is farming. Uh, Everybody knows in recent times there has been one too many issues on the television. Every now and then you hear about farmers hardest clashes, and then you hear about banditry, kidnapping, rustling. You know, uh, it's quite a serious matter because farming, as we all know, is the lifeline, so to say, of any country or any economy. So the effect is absolutely most devastating. There's hope, of course, but a lot needs to be done, to see that that trust is returned back to farmers.
So now, recently, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria decided to change service chiefs because there's been a lot of clamor around their performance. We actually saw a couple of videos out there where servicemen were rejoicing when those chiefs, various ranks were retired. Why would servicemen be rejoicing that some of their chiefs had retired? We have never seen or heard of anything like that in Nigeria, particularly, because there's always been a very strong sense of loyalty to each and every member of the armed forces or the armed forces themselves.
Well, we all agitated at a point in time for a change in the topmost structure of the military because we felt that the former service chiefs had reached their apex. Every human being has a threshold, and once you get to a point, you are faced with laws of diminishing returns. So we felt that there was a need for a change to bring in new blood, new vigor, with which this war against these insurgents could be taken to a new level. Rather unfortunate that at the time the whole nation was clamoring for it, we didn't get it. But eventually, the president and commander in chief got it right, made the change, and within the little period that this change has been done, I think we all can see that there is a new vigor, really, and that things have picked up, things are changing. There's hope. Uh, Hope, of course, as you know, is something that requires time. So I think we need to give them a little more time. But definitely, there is a change.
So the president has been accused severally of not responding quickly enough to the clamor of Nigerians when it comes to insecurity. Some of the opinion that he has too many distractions and too many distractions. Some of the opinion that his team, especially when you talk of the media team, that the media team are not quick to respond. A lot of them do not speak about the efforts that the president is trying to because the president needs to start to work on the team. Because if he change the service chiefs, you can already see the effects of that change. Because he also needs to change a lot of the key staff around him.
Well, in my personal opinion, being that I am not privy to the president or the kind of briefs that the president receives, I can only speak on assumption or from my own perspective. My perspective is the president needs to make some sort of example or some sort of scapegoats to say. In leadership, we all know that responsibility is attributed to the top. And even though a lot of people will tell you, I take responsibility, but the question is, do most people know what that means? And do they really take responsibility when it comes to the physical and actual act of taking responsibility? It's one thing to say, I take responsibility. It's another thing to act as though one takes responsibility. Now, what we are faced with in the country is a situation where the president, for reasons known best to the president, is not very good at communicating with his people. So many a times, perhaps, the common view is that the president may not be aware of what is happening, or that the president may not be getting the right briefs, well, nobody can speak or ascertain to that except the president. But one thing I know is that in any society, for leadership to be effective, leadership must be seen to, first of all, know what is happening, feel what is happening, hear what is happening, see what is happening, and know how to deal with the things that are happening. Now, in Nigeria, we've been faced with a situation where the reoccurring decimal of this insurgency, this banditry, this kidnap, this menace has been on the rise. Virtually every week, there is a new episode. I mean, it started from Chibok, then Dapchi, and so on. Eventually, it came to Katsina, Zamfara, and just recently, you heard about the one in Kaduna State at the School of Forestry. And interestingly, this school is situated directly opposite the Nigerian Defense Academy, which is the premier institute, not only in Nigeria, but in West Africa and probably in the whole of Africa for, young officers and so on. So one will expect that an area such as that would be covered, would be secured, would be, a no-go zone to these bandits. But sadly, you find this is reoccurring every now and then, even around areas that the military have presence. So this worries some of us. We wonder what is happening. Is the president not being firm enough on his chiefs of staff or chiefs of security? Shouldn't those areas be the safest and the most well-guarded areas? Why should these things be happening? I mean, there are more questions than answers, but in any case, all I can say is I think Mr. President really needs to raise that hammer and hit it with the kind of force that will reverberate a message across that business has to change.
So there has been this myth, even though fact, but there's been this myth that the Nigerian police force is not capable in terms of training, in terms of number of police in Nigeria, because of the vast landscape in Nigeria and because of the huge population. Nigeria is arguably one of the most policed states in the world. So all the women that military formations like the Nigerian Defense Academy will not be areas where these types of banditry would take place. Several years ago, a policeman came out. He was posted to Maiduguri during the initial Boko Haram insurgency, and he was of the opinion that there were Boko Haram members within the military and the police force. Is it possible that some members of the armed forces and the police were involved in this banditry, and that is why it has become so rampant, so crazy?
Well, you see, in every country in the world, you have situations where bad people exist in good organizations. Nigeria is no different. You will be absolutely mistaken to say that the whole of the Nigerian security architecture, that you will not find one or two, people that will compromise. I mean, this is normal. I mean, even if you go to the most advanced countries in the world, every now and then you hear about people that have been arrested on allegations of, serving another master or serving a different interest other than the national interest. This is normal. I mean, people, this is human behavior. You will always find that. But in the case of Nigeria, like you mentioned about the police, my issue is this. I don't think that the number of the police is the problem. We have a fairly large police force. Do we need a larger force? Absolutely, no doubt. But do we have a force that can do its job if, for reasons best known to the police, they are allowed to do their job? Yes. What are these things I'm talking about? One, in any country in the world, intelligence is paramount. Without
Yeah.
intelligence, you cannot have an effective military, army, police, civil defense, because it is the security that determines their investigative abilities, their
Yeah.
abilities to know what is happening, their abilities to search and find, problems and anticipate problems and so on and so forth. Now, in Nigeria, unfortunately, we have a very unique problem that I think I haven't seen anywhere else in the world apart from Nigeria. I cannot say with statistics what number, but you will agree with me that a large number of the Nigerian police are on VIP treatment. What does this mean? They
Okay.
are following big men. They are following ministers. They are following members of House and senators. They are following retired governors. They are following businessmen and whoever has the might to have them follow them. And this to me is a major problem. Rather than allow the police to do their primary job, if you take a head count, you will find that the number that is being distracted, by going for this other kind of VIP job, is quite alarming. In other countries, what they do is uh, private companies are given licenses to operate VIP personnel
Secure. Yeah.
protection services. That way, the main infrastructure of government, like the police, like the civil defense in Nigeria, like if we have, the DSS and so on, will now be allowed to concentrate solely and primarily on fighting crime. Sadly, this is not the case. And I hope and wish that somebody will echo this at the right corridors of power. Some time ago, the Inspector General of Police made an announcement that all such VIP personnel should be withdrawn and returned to the police force for redeployment and so on. But I mean, if you take a drive today, as I'm speaking right now, you will be amazed at the number of VIPs you will see with 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 policemen. So how then can this policemen be allowed to go and do the crime prevention that they are primarily, supposed to be engaged in? You see, that is one of the major issues. Now, like we were talking about military formations and so on. My
Yeah.
personal opinion is that every military formation should be mandated to patrol a certain radius of its environment 24 hours. So imagine if you have 200 or 300 uh, installations, across the country. So imagine the effect that will have if you take a 5 kilometer radius, around those areas, and those facilities are mandated to keep them safe. I farm in Jaji, and I had an experience about 5 or 6 years ago with cattle rustlers. My farm, if you take the line of what do you call it, as the crow flies, from my farm to the barrack is no more than say 3 kilometers on a straight
Wow.
stretch of land. or 4 kilometers at most. So one will wonder, why should such an area even be, experiencing such?
Yes.
So if you get, my point, I think if you count the number of police installations across the country, number of military, army, air force, navy, and so on and so forth, and you give each one of them a mandate and you hold them accountable such that every military commander knows that if anything happens within a 5 kilometer or 10 kilometer radius of his area of operation, he will be held accountable. Now, these are the kind of things I would have liked to, I would love to see Mr. President stamp his foot and mandate his security, top to do.
But there are several issues associated with that. So in the first instance, this is civilian dispensation. We have seen quite a lot of years in Nigeria's history being under the military rule, and people do not want to see soldiers in their everyday lives, patrolling or running checkpoints and that kind of thing. One would expect that the president would insist to the Inspector General of Police that private individuals should not have police private protection because they are being funded by the taxpayers. So how is it possible that the president would issue an order to the Inspector General of Police and these orders are not being carried out? Does the Inspector General of Police even need to be told what the role of the Nigerian police is under the Constitution of the Federal Republic?
Well, you see, like the president is a military, ex-military officer, and in the military circles, you will agree that people may not necessarily have the guts or the courage to walk up to their commander-in-chief and tell them, sir, these are our suggestions, or these are, this and that, But I think if we take things from a professional perspective, I mean, like I said, in other countries, private organizations are given a mandate. This is something that can bring income to the nation. These are things that can bring employment. And then it will help, because imagine if 10 licenses are given today to 10 companies and given the mandate to form such companies. It will be directly under the purview, of course, of the agencies like the DSS, So it's not like people are just going to be told, here you have a license, go and do what you want to do. No, there's going to be some sort of control. There's going to be some sort of guide. There's going to be parameters, How do you even become one of those companies? How do you apply? How do you qualify for such? But imagine if that was to be done and you have 10 companies in the nation who have been given a mandate to provide VIP protection, armed VIP protection. The arm is what changes everything. We have a lot of companies that are doing security in Nigeria. You see them with batons. You see them, with young men wearing body armor, kitted, and so on, but unarmed. The moment you change that to armed, you've changed the whole concept. And then you can be free as an individual. You are a banker, you are whoever you want to be, you want protection, you apply, you pay for it. It's a service. They are guided by law. And then you allow the police to go and do their function. But look at it now. I've become a member of the House of the Republic today, and automatically I am given how many policemen with how many hillocks following me, one, all over the place. One, it constitutes a menace. Two, it deprives the nation of this force, so to say, that should have been there fighting crime. So I think if such could be done, I mean, you remember during the time of General Abacha, everybody heard about the famous strike force. a small elite team. I mean, the team didn't comprise more than 100 people. But you can imagine 100 people were so, the country was so scared of 100 people. They had coverage of the entire nation virtually. There was no place they were not known. There was no place they were not fed. There's no place they were not respected. So that's what I'm talking about. Leave the professionals to do their job, and then allow for other, agencies to come up, or other private companies to come up and handle, the job of VIP protection.
So, in most cases, people talk about government, government, government. People really, the people, both government and the people, the citizens of the states, equally have responsibilities towards themselves. We're going to take a very short break, and when we get back, we will talk about the role of the citizens, the effect that the attitude and the general behavior of the average Nigerian has had on Nigeria as a nation state. We'll be right back shortly after this. Hello, good evening. If you're just joining us, you're welcome to another edition of Just Banter. Today we are discussing Nigeria on the brink of collapse with Abdulaziz Haladu. Now, Abdul, we've been having a very interesting conversation, and all the conversation has been around the government. Nigeria is a country that has quite a lot of diverse nations within the nation. We have seen that you have the people who say they are true Nigerians, and then you have the people who do not want to be Nigerian. Well, recently there was the End SARS protest, which was a protest supposedly against police brutality and to end that elite unit of the Nigerian police force called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, called SARS in short. But a lot of people have looked at it and said, but Nigerians themselves are not acting as if to the Nigerian state. So before, sorry for the break in transmission due to a technical glitch. Before the break in transmission, we were talking about the issue of the responsibility of citizenry towards the government. Because as the government has a responsibility towards the citizenry, so does the citizenry have a responsibility towards government. And we have seen where Nigerians actually have not been taking responsibility. Why is that?
Well, you see, like you said, it's a double way thing. We, the citizens, have a responsibility to government and the government to the citizens. Now, what is the responsibility of the citizen to the government? The responsibility of the citizen to the government is to always remind the government to keep the government on check, to keep the government on its toes and so on. But it goes beyond that. Recently, there was an instance where the Minister of Defense made a statement saying that in the case of this armed banditry and so on, the people need to kind of wake up and start to be proactive. And there was a lot of bashing from all areas. People made a lot of comments saying, why would the minister make such a comment? After all, security is the responsibility of government and so on. And a few days ago, about a week or so, an incident happened in Katsina where a group of bandits went to a village, and they were overpowered actually by the youths in that village or that town or that community. So for a change, the youths got up, they mobilized, and they took a defensive position, and they overturned the situation. So just some few weeks ago, we were mocking and wondering why would the minister, make such a statement. And Providence has its own way. A week later, this incident happened. So it's an eye opener, and it's a wake up call. Really, it's like as if to say to us, the citizens, that even though security is the main purview of government, the main responsibility of government, but truly the people owe it to themselves, have a responsibility to themselves to also partake in some sort of way, in this whole situation, this whole security situation. Now, how do we see that coming into effect? I think that for a long time, the governors have been neglecting their responsibility, and this is a wake-up call. The governors need to wake up. The governors need to liaise with the local government. They need to liaise with the local authority, that is the chieftaincies and so on, and they need to come out with a new strategy or a new scheme. One of Nigeria's major problems is in the past. I mean, even up till now, people are afraid of taking a defensive position because often you find yourself in so much trouble with the law. I mean, say for instance, an armed robber comes to your house and you do self-defense and you kill the armed robber. Ordinarily, everywhere in the world, it should be a simple and straightforward matter that you protected yourself. Self-defense, simple. But you will agree with me that here in Nigeria, it can tend to be a cumbersome situation. You could tend to be in a great deal of problem, even though you were simply just defending yourself. So this kind of bottlenecks have to be looked at.
I don't think
the people have to be encouraged.
Fortunately, I don't think Nigeria is the only country where you get into trouble when you defend. I live in Ireland, and it is also the
same.
Sorry,
I didn't get you.
I said I live in Ireland, and it is the same situation in Ireland as well. So in Ireland, if you do self-defense, you just get into trouble. Because usually what they say is just call the police. Nigeria is not the only country where that happens, fortunately.
Yeah, but you will agree. I understand.
So now, when you talk about youths being able to get up to defend, that community, for instance, does that not call into question the issue of proliferation of arms within the society? Because there are so many illegal arms within the society.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, if you look at the situation in Ireland and other parts of the world, they are not coupled with the kind of insurgency and banditry, and kidnap and all of this happening.
Yes.